With profound, humble gratitude and love to all venerated enlightened masters, we bow to the Almighty in soulful gratefulness for gifting us with their holy, blessed presence. May all beings be awakened by their divine grace.
Part 3 of 4.
Etc.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
The human being is born with an inclination towards virtue. Of what then is this evidence, if not of the existence of an innate inclination of the human soul toward goodness and nobleness, and of the presence of the seeds of virtue in each one of us? Please continue watching for the practical wisdom of Stoic philosopher Gaius Musonius Rufus, vegetarian.
Denied vegan, cause you don't even love yourself.
Ciao coraggiosi e amorevoli spettatori. This means hello brave and loving viewers in Italian, the official language of Sardinia. I am Giulia. The upright people of Sardinia admire your commitment to following the precepts laid down by the wise ancient masters and join you in striving to live a noble and righteous life. May all humans be awakened to their true, compassionate and virtuous nature for the benefit of all who inhabit this earth. Welcome to Goodness and Virtue, selections from Gaius Musonius Rufus's teachings, Part 2 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. Gaius Musonius Rufus was one of the great Stoic philosophers of the Roman Empire. He lived in the 1st century CE and was born in Volsini, an ancient city of Etruria which is now part of present-day Italy. His philosophy focused on the study and practice of virtue. He believed that everyone is capable of being virtuous. However, people who had not learned the skills of ethical living could not be expected to live without error. Thus, he lived and promoted a simple and frugal lifestyle, which included the training of self-control, modesty, courage, and benevolence. He was a vegetarian and taught that being mindful of one's diet was a vital virtue. His students included Roman noblemen, senators, and future philosophers. In the years following, his wisdom continued to have an impact on later Stoic philosophy as well as early Christian moral thought. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, was his most notable student and whose principles were deeply influenced by his mentor. Although the works of Gaius Musonius Rufus are mentioned in the writings of Epictetus, most have been lost through time. However, his philosophical teachings, in the form of aphoristic sayings and discourses, were preserved by his students. This was later translated and included in Cora E. Lutz's book Musonius Rufus, the Roman Socrates. Let us continue with the discourse entitled That Man is Born with an Inclination Toward Virtue, and that one should disdain hardships, where reasoning is given as to why it is human nature to want to be virtuous, and that one should not be afraid of perseverance and hard work for goodness and the benefit of others. that man is born with an inclination toward virtue. All of us, he used to say, are so fashioned by nature that we can live our lives free from error and nobly. Not that one can and another cannot, but all. The clearest evidence of this is the fact that the lawgivers lay down for all alike what may be done and forbid what may not be done, exempting from punishment no one who disobeys or does wrong, not the young, nor the old, not the strong, nor the weak, not anyone whomsoever. And yet, if the whole notion of virtue were something that came to us from without, and we shared no part of it by birth, just as in activities pertaining to the other arts, no one who has not learned the art is expected to be free from error. So in like manner, in things pertaining to the conduct of life, it would not be reasonable to expect anyone to be free from error who had not learned virtue, seeing that virtue is the only thing that saves us from error in daily living. Now, in the care of the sick, we demand no one but the physician to be free from error, and in handling the lyre, no one but the musician, and in managing the helm, no one but the pilot. But in the conduct of life, it is no longer only the philosopher whom we expect to be free from error, though he alone would seem to be the only one concerned with the study of virtue, but all men alike, including those who have never given any attention to virtue. Clearly then, there is no explanation for this other than that the human being is born with an inclination toward virtue. And this indeed is strong evidence of the presence of goodness in our nature, that all speak of themselves as having virtue and being good. For take the common man. When asked whether he is stupid or intelligent, not one will confess to being stupid. Or again, when asked whether he is just or unjust, not one will say that he is unjust. In the same way, if one asks him whether he is temperate or intemperate, he replies at once that he is temperate. And finally, if one asks whether he is good or bad, he would say that he is good, even though he can name no teacher of virtue or mention any study or practice of virtue he has ever made. Of what then is this evidence, if not of the existence of an innate inclination of the human soul toward goodness and nobleness, and of the presence of the seeds of virtue in each one of us? Moreover, because it is entirely to our advantage to be good, some of us deceive ourselves into thinking that we are really good, while others of us are ashamed to admit that we are not. Why then, pray, when one who has not learned letters or music or gymnastics never claims to have knowledge of these arts, nor makes any pretense of knowing them, and is quite unable even to name a teacher to whom he went, why, I say, does everyone profess that he has virtue? It is because none of those other skills is natural to man, and no human being is born with a natural faculty for them, whereas an inclination towards virtue is inborn in each one of us. That one should disdain hardships. In order to support more easily and more cheerfully those hardships which we may expect to suffer on behalf of virtue and goodness, it is useful to recall what hardships people will endure for unworthy ends. Thus, for example, consider what intemperate lovers undergo for the sake of evil desires, and how much exertion others expend for the sake of making profit, and how much suffering those who are pursuing fame endure. And bear in mind that all of these people submit to all kinds of toil and hardship voluntarily. Is it not then monstrous that they for no honorable reward endure such things, while we for the sake of the ideal good, that is, not only the avoidance of evil such as wrecks our lives, but also the acquisition of virtue, which we may call the provider of all goods, are not ready to bear every hardship? And yet, would not anyone admit how much better it is, in place of exerting oneself to win someone else's wife, to exert oneself to discipline one's desires? In place of enduring hardships for the sake of money, to train oneself to want little? Instead of giving oneself trouble about getting notoriety, to give oneself trouble how not to thirst for notoriety? Instead of trying to find a way to injure an envied person, to inquire how not to envy anyone? And instead of slaving, as sycophants do, to win false friends, to undergo suffering in order to possess true friends? Now, since in general toil and hardship are a necessity for all men, both for those who seek the better ends and for those who seek the worse, it is preposterous that those who are pursuing the better are not much more eager in their efforts than those for whom there is small hope of reward for all their pains. Yet, when we see acrobats face without concern their difficult tasks and risk their very lives in performing them, turning somersaults over upturned swords, or walking ropes set at a great height, or flying through the air like birds, where one misstep means death, all of which they do for a small recompense, shall we not be ready to endure hardship for the sake of complete happiness? For surely there is no other end in becoming good than to become happy and to live happily for the remainder of our lives. One might reasonably reflect upon characteristics even of certain animals to shame us into endurance of hardships. How much more fitting, then, it is that we stand firm and endure when we know that we are suffering for some good purpose, either to help our friends or to benefit our city, or to defend our wives and children, or, best and most imperative, to become good and just and self-controlled, a state which no man achieves without hardships. And so it remains for me to say that the man who is unwilling to exert himself almost always convicts himself as unworthy of good, since we gain every good by toil.
We don't need to eat anyone who would run, swim, or fly away if he could. James Cromwell, vegan.
Benevolent viewers, it was a pleasure to have your company today. Coming up next is an uplifting Supreme Master Ching Hai Day celebration, part 1 of 8, right after noteworthy news. May divine providence guide you and your loved ones towards spiritual upliftment and contentment.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/WOW.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule et suprememastertv.com/WOW.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/WOW.
برامجنا متوفرة بالعديد من اللغات. يرجى زيارة suprememastertv.com/schedule و suprememastertv.com/WOW.